Approach Control, this is Podcast 1.
Go ahead, Podcast 1. This is Approach Control.
Tower, this is Free Range Texan Airways. We've turned on final approach and are beginning our descent.
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten your seatbelt sign and has informed me that we will be landing on schedule for our bi-weekly Free Range Texan podcast. Please remain seated until Podcast 1 rolls to a complete stop. On behalf of our captain and crew, we thank you for flying Free Range Texan Airways.
All right, quiet, Studio A. Quiet on the set. Control room?
All set. Edit wave rolling. Tracks are hot.
Mic check, sweetie pie.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 3.
Michael, give me a sound check.
Hello, check. All right, team, let's give it our best.
Thank you, Michael. All set. Attention in the studio. Stand by. Action.
Well, howdy, y'all. The Free Range Texan podcast is underway. This here program is a special look at the way life is shaping up for folks in the U.S. of A., seen through the eyes of a born and bred West Texan. Our host is a veteran broadcaster who is known for his campfire visits on radio. Michael Shawn is standing by.
I'm also known for my barbecue eating skills.
So here he is, our host, a real Free Range Texan himself, Michael Shawn.
Episode 17, up and pumping. It's good to be with you on this Free Range Texan podcast. What a show we got for you. I know I say that at the beginning of every show, but I am amazed at this literal plethora. That's my word for the week. My literal plethora of remarkable things that are going to be happening on this podcast. All right, we got a story about Texas. We didn't intend for it to be. It came out kind of a Texas versus California thing, and that wasn't our original intention. It was written that way, so we stayed true to what the author had in mind. That's right. I'm blaming it on the writers, folks. And we got the 8 Love Grand File on this show. Of course, we always end up at the campfire. We have a surprise guest. One of the blues singing great are going to be on our show in honor of our friend, the late, great C.B. Stubblefield. What a show we got lined up for you. So let's get ready to ride.
Have digital microphone will travel.
Senor, what are you doing?
Aiming high, over the wall.
You're listening to the Free Range Texan podcast.
Hold it. Let me just explain something here. Now, here's what you need to know. Our advertisers mean the world to this podcast. And if you hear us talk about it, I want our listeners to know that we really believe in it, or it wouldn't be here. That being said, the Free Range Texan House of Treasures is actually one of our favorite advertisers, but I'll let you in on a little inside secret. The way we like to promote the Free Range House of Treasures is to endorse the products available to you there. Now, in the same breath, I'll tell you that my old friend C.B. Stubblefield came up with some of the best barbecue sauce to ever come out of the Lone Star State. and to honor his memory, Free Range Texan House of Treasures have brought to our show this very episode a remarkable and talented blues singer to do a special tune for us now on the Free Range Texan podcast. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado,
Michael.
What is it, Johnny Lynn? I'm in the middle of introducing our blues singer.
Well, that's why I stopped you.
Why would you stop me?
I sent Sweetie Pie down the hall to the green room to get the blues singer, and he's nowhere to be found. I checked with security, and he hasn't even come into the building at all.
Oh, wow. Tom Selleck all over again.
You'll have to cover.
What do you mean, cover?
You'll have to do the segment.
Listen carefully to the sound of my voice. I tell stories. I do product endorsements. I sit by the campfire. I do interviews. I host the show. But never once have I ever pretended to be a blues singer.
Yeah. Stand by, Michael. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4.
I got the blues, the down and dirty blues. Lord, my lady got cross. That means the old woman left and took my sauce. I got the blues. The Stubbs is gone. I don't mind her leaving, but taking the sauce was wrong. Running out of Stubbs barbecue sauce is enough to give anyone the blues. But the good news is that you can order Stubbs barbecue sauce from freerangetexan.net. Yes, friends, running out of Stubbs sauce is just wrong. No matter what the reason, mean old woman took my sauce.
Nice work, Michael.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. First, I'd just like to thank all the little people. Oh, wait a minute. Are we out of time? And now, it's time for one of our favorite segments on the Free Range Texan. Ain't Love Grand File. Hi, this is Michael Shawn, thinking about a story that was inspired by Graham Cotton. He turned to his wife and he said, "Statistically, it's safer for me to fly anyway." She said, "The pilots in those statistics have licenses and they fly Boeings." A single-engine Cessna crop duster was no Boeing. Still, he thought, with enough fuel, they could get there, he said. "What do we have to lose?" She said, "What's waiting for us there?" This was the part that he could never explain to her. At the end of his life, he felt an aching, debilitating attraction to the North Pole, like he'd felt for her once. He read about a town close to the pole, how it was the coldest uninhabited settlement on Earth. Things might never thaw out there. Time might slow. The sun for tireless summer months unsetting. North of you, only the icy curved tip of the world. He said, "Doesn't it touch something in you? Doesn't it sound mythical?" She said, "Unreachable. That's what it sounds like." She stood from the bench and stepped into the rubber boots by the door and out onto the porch. She stepped out, got on her knees, and pulled potatoes from the ground. Their retirement, not from farming, but from life, was getting closer. That's what he felt in his aches. There was no 401k to live off of, and the dirt was cold and damp in her fingers, her nails, and wetting her knees through her jeans. There are polar bears there, she said. Aren't you scared of dying alone? He shook his head and said, I'm scared of dying here. She held out her shirt and dropped the potatoes in. It had been a long time since they'd bought new clothes. He pulled a brass compass from his pocket and said, 2,000 miles that way. They speak another language there. They have a motto, much in little. She got up, took the compass from his hand. When she said, when you're going to quit trying to trick yourself, I'll listen. Is your mind going? Who knew the answer? He kept looking northwards, wondering if the strong magnetic pull had an effect on his mind, if in fact it aligned things when you stood right on top of it. Spring was coming, and he worried that the time of his crystalline thought process might melt to where his brain was a runny, watery mess spilling into nowhere. Katie, he pointed. On the edge of the field, a lone deer appeared, standing in the clearing. They watched it until it looked up, spotted them, and ran. The old gentleman turned his head. A landmine overseas had left him paralyzed from the waist down. He smiled and said, I love you, Katie. And she smiled, and then she helped him back in the house. For more information about this edition of Ain't Love Grand, go to freerangetexan.net. And on the blog, you can contact us at info@freerangetexan.net. In the meantime, we always want you to remember, ain't love grand? That you can pick up in grocery stores that always seems to be available. It's called the Caprock Patriot. I have a big time thumbing through that and reading some of the articles. And there was an article inspired by Vince B., and I want to share it with you. Dateline, California. The governor of California is jogging with his dog along a natural trail. A coyote jumps out and attacks the governor's dog, then bites the governor. The governor starts to intervene by reflecting on the movie Bambi and then realizes that he should stop because the coyote is only doing what is natural. He calls animal control. Animal control captures the coyote and bills the state $200 for testing, $500 for relocating it. He calls a veterinarian. The vet collects the dead dog and bills the state $200, testing it for diseases. The governor goes to the hospital and spends $3,500 getting checked for diseases from the coyote. And on getting to his bite wound, well, it got bandaged. The running trail gets shut down for 6 months while Fish and Game conducts a $100,000 survey to make sure that the area is now free of dangerous animals. The governor spends $50,000 in state funds implementing a coyote awareness program for residents of the area. The state legislature spends $2 million to study how to better treat rabies and how to permanently eradicate the disease throughout the world. The governor's security agent is fired for not stopping the attack, and the state spends $150,000 to hire and train a new agent with additional special training for the nature of coyotes. PETA, not to be outdone, protests the coyotes' relocation and files a $5 million suit against the state. Meanwhile, back in Texas, the governor of Texas is jogging with his dog along a nature trail. A coyote jumps out and attacks the dog. The governor shoots the coyote with his state-issued pistol and keeps jogging. The governor has spent 50 cents on a .45 caliber hollow point cartridge. The buzzards eat the dead coyote. And that, my friends, is why California is broke and Texas, well, Texas is not. Hello, this is Michael Shawn. You know, the world of advertising and public relations has changed immensely over the last few years. Today's business owners, corporate executives, corporate trainers, from the mom and pops to the top Fortune 500 companies, have a whole new set of needs. At 18PR, we specialize in many of those needs. You need what you need, you want what you want, and you need it in a timely fashion. The people at 18PR have been on this roller coaster ride for over 3 decades and are figuring some things out. But it wasn't until the last couple of years that we rebuilt our playbook, bringing on board vital and new assistance in our creative services. And that's where you come in and win. From our clean, clear digital recording studio to our team of strategic media planners, 18PR's goal is to listen and help you find what you need in today's complex multimedia marketplace. Perhaps you could benefit from a fresh new face. Developing radio, television, print, oh sure. But the on-ramps to today's information highway can be a whole nother challenge. From social media to podcasting, let us help. You can find out about 18PR at a-teampr.com. And additionally, there's a link on the freerangetexan.net website because 18PR produces this program as well. So think about it and then make a move. And maybe you could hire the A-Team.
Have digital microphone will travel.
Wagons! Ho! Get 'em up! Move 'em out!
You're listening to the Free Range Texan Podcast.
Hi, this is Michael Shawn. Welcome to the Campfire. I've got a true story for you told by Scott Bill Elliott a long time ago. It was hot. Creeks were dry on the West Texas prairie. It had been months since a single drop of rain had fallen. The cattle left on the range were like walking skeletons. Such was the condition from Colorado City all the way up to Spur Ranch. July 1890. Two outriding cowpunchers, Sam and Jess, rode along silently. The ponies started down a trail into a fairly deep, dry creek bed. At the bank of the cut, the horses stopped. Both riders had unconsciously pulled their reins. There, in the creek bed, was a broken-down, covered wagon. 2 hitched horses were still at the wagon tongue, too weak to pull. Slowly, the cowboys approached the wagon. Laying in the wagon was a little girl about 3 years old, fast asleep. Both cowboys stared. The child woke up. "Nita wants a drink," she said. The cowboys had none. The closest water they knew about was at the Hart's Ranch, about 10 miles from where they were. The little girl stretched out her arms to Jess and hugged him. He took her to his horse, and Sam unhitched the horses from the wagon. Both cowboys rode a fairly large circle, trying to see if they could locate the child's parents. They found no one. Sam left a note with directions to the ranch. A lighted lantern hung all night on the ranch house porch, but no one came. Mrs. Jim Roberts, wife of the Hart's ranch owner and mother of 6 children herself, took the little girl to her heart. So Nita, from that day, became Nita Roberts. Oh yes, and the cowboys searched from sun to sun the next day for several days afterwards. They found nothing. Years passed. By 1904, Jim Roberts was having a rough go of it. By then, Nita had become secretary to the president of a Fort Worth bank. He knew about the maverick found during the long drought of years past. One day, an old friend came to see the bank president. He later told the banker that the girl in the outer office looked so much like his now deceased son. The banker told him the story of the little maverick girl, and the old man resolved to go to the Hart's ranch. He identified the rifle and the powder horn found with Nita. The old man was wealthy, and he helped Jim Roberts. He tried to give the 2 cowboys some money, but they refused. It's the cowboy way. The old man, Nita's actual grandfather, died a couple of years after finding Nita. He left her rich. And Nita? Well, she went to Weatherford, right outside of Fort Worth, to look after 2 old cowpokes who had found her that day on the prairie. Just a true story here at Michael Shawn's Campfire. Glad you joined us. Adios, my friends. Well, just first and foremost, because I can't believe it's almost time to pack up the campsite here and get ready to move along from episode 17. Woo, that went fast. But big thanks go out to our security team headed by, you guessed it, Foxy, the Wonder Dog. Good job, Foxy. Notice how she didn't bark in the background so much now. This dog is... well, trained is the only word I can think. Go get in the pickup. Good dog. As we wind things up, thanks to you folks for going to the freerangetexan.net Free Range House of Treasures. and making sure you got plenty of Stubbs barbecue. By the way, in case I haven't told you, I recommend the original as a great place to start. On the governor's story, I didn't mean to be ditching California, so don't anybody keep your cards and letters, folks. We think a lot of California here. It is a great place to visit. You know what I mean, Vern? Hey, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. As always, you can listen as many times as you'd like. We thank each and every one of you for our growing numbers here on the Free Range Texan. Take 'em home, sweetie pie.
Thank y'all for listening to the Free Range Texan podcast, produced at A-Team PR Studios out yonder in West Texas, with our host, who's been voted the hardest working man in podcasting, Michael Shawn. Feedback or submissions to our program can be submitted on our website, freerangetexan.net. That's freerangetexan.net. This is Sweetie Pie on behalf of Michael Shawn and the crew here in Studio A, where we're all looking forward to spending time with you on our next bi-weekly episode of the Free Range Texan podcast. Y'all come back now. You hear?
Tower, this is Free Range Texan Airways, Podcast 1, ready for takeoff.
Podcast 1, you're cleared for takeoff.
Nose up. Check wheels up.
Wheels up.
Reduce flaps. Mr. Sanders, take us to 10,000 feet. Bring us around to a course of south by southwest.
10,000 feet, south by southwest. Aye, Captain.
Engage autopilot.